Everybody, I'm Mayor Pro Tem Gabe Quinto in El Cerrito, and I wanted to say that the city of El Cerrito, it started after the '89 earthquake, and it was Mayor Barkey, Jane Barkey, who started with home hardening here after the Oakland earthquake and the fires. So we've been doing this for quite a while now. So this presentation is on evacuation readiness. Our fire chiefs, they play a very active role in what we do. I'm incoming president of the League of California Cities, so no, this is one of the main things that our fire chief section, who are very, very active with the League of California Cities, they meet often to work on this and many other things we're dealing with up and down the state of California. And they're going to work on why wild-safe readiness is important here, especially in our high fire danger zone of the East Bay. I'd like to introduce Jamie Albrecht, who was with Berkeley OES, to present on these evacuation readiness plans. So again, welcome.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim.
Thank you. Good afternoon. I'm really excited to be here. My name is Jamie Albrecht. I'm an emergency services coordinator with Berkeley Fire. I lead outreach and community preparedness education, and today I'm here to focus on household and community level fire weather planning and evacuation. I'll go into a little bit more about what I mean by fire weather in this presentation. So in this presentation, you will hopefully learn, take action, and talk to your neighbors. I'm sorry in advance, this is not a presentation where you just sit here and listen to me. I'm going to ask you to do things in this presentation. I'm going to ask you to talk to your neighbors next to you. This is a community challenge, and we're all working through it together. And I think the best thing I can help you do is talk about it with other people, get some help thinking through, and taking action today. Who's left a disaster preparedness presentation and done nothing when they got home? It's okay. You can raise your hand. Yeah. Okay. No one wants to admit that. It's okay. We've all done it, but today we're going to do things a little differently. So I just want to set some context for fire history in the East Bay. We built where nature needs to burn. I love this map from East Bay Regional Parks, which shows fire history going back to the 1990s. This area where we love and live, it's beautiful, has a history of burning since time immemorial, and we live here and we have to live with it and live alongside it. We have a history of wildfire in the East Bay. Everyone's familiar with the 1991 Berkeley-Oakland fire. We had the 1923 Berkeley fire. If you look at this map even closer, you'll see instances of fire across the East Bay in the 1900s. And so this isn't a question of when, it's not a question of if, it's a question of when. And so we need to be prepared to live when this happens. We heard about Zone Zero. That's about living a little bit differently. Today I'm going to ask you to think about living a little bit differently around evacuation. So to talk a little bit about the drivers of wildfire behavior and why we have wildfire risk where we live. So first is topography. You know, the East Bay Hills, we have this beautiful mountainous area to our east, canyons that can really drive wildfire behavior. We have weather, which I'm going to talk a lot about today, but we have that typically in the fall months, that dry, low humidities that come around September, October, November. We get those really high winds. Those are really drivers of wildfire behavior on the weather side. And then the last component to talk about is fuel. We have you'll see the photos here show what the East Bay Hills look like many, many moons ago, and we have built and put fuel in the middle of that area that already like to burn. So we've added our houses, which, as talked about earlier, are adding, fuel to our wildfire risk. So when we think about fire risk in the East Bay, we're really thinking about fuel, weather, and the topography, and that is why we see our wildfire behavior here. So I'm going to talk a lot about evacuation in this presentation. Is this how we want evacuation to go? Okay, yeah, it's not a rhetorical question, right? The left photo is from the 1991 tunnel fire. This photo on the right is 30 years later in Palisades. They look exactly almost identical. 30 years, we're seeing the same evacuation challenges that we saw in 1991. The people in 1991 are in gridlock traffic. They are running without shoes on, and essentially we have the same thing in the Palisades fire. And so you all said no, we don't want evacuation to look like this, and that is true. We don't want evacuation to look like this, so we want to do things a little bit differently. Sorry. So the first thing that I want to focus on is that evacuation doesn't start on the road. So when we're thinking about doing things differently, there's a bunch of stuff you do and can do before you get on the road that is going to help you get to safety faster. So before you get on the road, there's first you receive a notification, someone telling you that something is happening, and then you also take time to get ready to leave your home. We call that mobilization, getting ready, whatever you want to call it, and then you hit the road. The faster that you can do the early stuff, get notified, get ready, leave your house, the faster you will be to safety and the more likely that you won't encounter traffic. So we want to focus on speeding up all the things you're doing before you get on the road. So let's start with signing up for emergency alerts. We have 2 counties represented at this event today. One is Alameda County. You can sign up for AC Alert. And if you are in Contra Costa County, your jurisdiction is in Contra Costa County, you can sign up for their community warning system. These are detailed messages that can go to your phone when a fire is started or beforehand when there's a red flag warning. Phone calls, text messages, emails. This is where you can get that information from your jurisdiction. Local jurisdictions, cities, also have other tools that they might recommend to you. I'm from the city of Berkeley. We tell our residents to sign up for other systems as well, but this is a very good starting point. Well, before we go to there, I just also want to remind people that during fire season, during red flag warnings, which we'll get into that in a little bit, have your phone on so that you can hear when notifications are coming through. This is the time of year to make sure that you can receive notifications on your phone or your landline and you're going to hear them. So take a moment right now. I said I was going to ask you to do a couple of things. Take a moment right now to pick up the one that is for your area, whether it's AC Alert or Contra Costa County. If you use QR codes, you can point your camera at it and pull it up to sign up later. And if you want to just go to it in your browser, it's acalert.org or cswalerts.com. This might take you a couple of minutes to sign up, put in all the information that you need, but it'll be really important to get that information when the time comes, and so you're prepared to hear from your local officials what's going on. And then another plug to follow up with what your local jurisdiction recommends you do beyond AC Alert. A lot of jurisdictions have redundancy. They might have a radio channel that they recommend. They might recommend other tools, so please follow up with your local jurisdiction. I only represent one, and I want to make sure everyone here who's from other cities knows that. So make time to do this after you leave here today. So I want to get into household fire weather planning. So I said at the beginning of this that this is about doing things a little bit differently and trying to speed up the things you're doing before you get on the road. Putting a plan together now is how you can speed that process up, where you're getting the notifications and your household is ready to leave right away, so you're avoiding that traffic, that gridlock. So the first thing is for you to think about, when are you going to leave? So when you receive that notification, there are often in a fire 2 types of warnings. One is called evacuation warning, and one is called evacuation order. Evacuation orders are often called lawful orders, where it's forcing you to leave. It's enforceable by local police departments. Prepare to evacuate is kind of like if you want a little bit of extra time. My recommendation is, if you ever get an evacuation warning, that you just go. Again, this is about leaving as early as possible and not waiting for things to get worse and to get backed up. And then, as always, leaving immediately if you feel threatened or you see fire near you. Those are also good tools for leaving early. So here, If you get prepared to evacuate, my recommendation, leave as soon as you receive that information. Don't wait for an order. Get out there as soon as possible. The other really important thing to note is that we can also leave before fires start. So mega fires, like the big fires that we all know by name, ignite and spread under predictable but rare weather conditions. So this is a matrix of what the Weather Service used to call red flag warnings. And so you can see that it is a grid of high sustained winds over 30 miles per hour and very, very low humidities. And you can see when they're going to call a red flag warning based on those forecasted weather conditions. That's when you might get a notification to your phone that they are saying that there's a red flag warning of the area. There's also another term that the National Weather Service uses called a particularly dangerous situation, or a PDS. This is sometimes called extreme fire weather, but the National Weather Service calls it a particularly dangerous situation. All the mega fires that we are very familiar with started in particularly dangerous situations. So Maui, Los Angeles, the 1991 Tunnel Fire, the Camp Fire, all of these fires started in this purple box. And so what we're saying is that we can, in fact, take this information, receive this forecast from the National Weather Service, and decide, you know what, the safest thing that we could do is to just not be here when this weather is forecasted. It's a tall order, but it is an option to not be in the area if this weather is forecasted to come. People evacuate before things happen all the time for hurricanes. It's an interesting question to ask yourself, why can't we do that here when this kind of severe weather is forecasted? So you can make some decisions for your own household. Are you going to leave before a fire starts? It is an option. When you get these kinds of notifications, you can check in with the Weather Service and follow along. Are they calling for a red flag warning? Are they calling for a particularly dangerous situation? Or again, you can wait till after a fire starts and make those decisions about warning or order. So these are great things to talk over with your family and decide what is the best for you. What option works best for you, and what do you feel most comfortable with? So I want to talk through a little bit about reasons why you might leave before a fire starts. And so, because what we're really talking about here is thinking through why evacuation might be really hard for my household or my family, and leaving early is the best guarantee of safety that you can have. So some reasons why you might choose to leave before a fire starts, things that might make evacuation even more challenging is one, and it got cut off here, but first is, do you live in a fire hazard severity zone, right? Checking in with your local jurisdiction, finding the maps. Do you live in areas that are at higher risk for fire? And then continue to calculate your risk from there. Having kids or pets or people you're trying to get to leave at a certain time, wrangling them all in one place. Does your neighborhood have only one way in and one way out? Narrow, windy roads that make evacuation really difficult. Is there any other reason why you might need more time? You have limits on your own mobility. These are all things that we have in our lives that are going to up our risk for not being able to leave quickly in the event an evacuation is ordered. So you can kind of take stock of your own risk and see, okay, how many of these do I check? I live in this area. This is what my neighborhood looks like. It would be best for us to try to leave early. So if you make that decision, the next, and honestly, whatever decision you make, so first thing is, do you live in these high fire zones on there as well? So to talk also about leaving as early as possible, so you could decide to leave before a fire starts. It is also true that if you're leaving after a fire starts, that you want to leave as early as possible, and make sure that you're making plans ahead of time that allow you to leave early. So a couple of things that can help with that is If you have children who are at school when these kinds of things happen and they are safe, they are outside of the evacuation zone, making sure someone else can pick them up so you're not waiting for them to come home. Right at the beginning, I talked about we are trying to speed up the point, the stuff at the beginning that you do in order to leave. So not waiting for people to return home before you leave your home, right? Getting yourselves out of there and making plans for the rest of your family to get to safety without returning to the hazard area. Also, if you leave an evacuation area, please do not for any reason go back to that area until officials tell you that it is okay to do that. That is when people die, going back and trying to retrieve things, and that is, again, adding to your evacuation time on the road if you're going back and forth and making these extra trips. And then also being prepared, your stuff is all ready to go in a bag. Again, cutting down the time you're taking to get on the road. So the short version of that is to always leave as early as possible. So after this, you need to decide where you're going to go. And I think one of the things we've seen from the LA fires is people who never thought that they were going to have to evacuate were being forced to evacuate for the first time. They had never really thought about it before. And so really getting people, everyone, no matter where you live, to have a plan of where you might go if you need to evacuate for your home for whatever reason, and what options exist in your network to help you do that. Do you have friends or family that you can stay with? Do you have backup plans for places you can go? Setting those up now will help you in the event that something happens. You can just head there. You don't even need to talk about it and have that delay you getting on the road. Planning how you will get out. So if you leave early before a fire starts, I think it goes without saying that you will probably be able to leave taking your normal routes. You're not faced with the gridlock. You can move a little bit slower. You can pack your car up. But if you're leaving after a fire starts, it's really important to know your neighborhood, both the routes out of your neighborhood and the people in them. So in the event of a fire, you're more likely to be helped by the people immediately around you. It's going to be pretty difficult for first responders to be helping every single neighborhood at a given time. So knowing your neighbors, knowing who could help you in the event of getting down the hill or getting out of your neighborhood, working together to carpool. The fewer cars are on the road, the better for everyone. Making the plans to, get a little bit of help for someone in your neighborhood who needs it. This is where neighborhood organizing is really important. And then being flexible and knowing every way out of your neighborhood. Just put on your, a neighborhood investigation cap and go out and practice those ways. The more roads you can use, the better off you'll be when you have to be flexible in those situations. And then last thing to think about is packing your go bag, right? Again, if you're leaving before a fire starts, you could maybe have a little bit more time to pack valuables or things that really matter to you. And if you're leaving after a fire starts and an evacuation order has been issued or an evacuation warning, this is when you're bringing the essentials. We're not taking the time to pack things and look for valuables. We're just grabbing something that's already been made that's going to help your family or whoever it is be safe during the evacuation or the immediate couple of hours afterwards. So this is a short list designed to not really add too much in case you have to carry it, and that it is just for you to be safe in an evacuation and maybe the hour or two afterwards. We're focused here, again, on the essentials. So I said I was going to make you do things, so it's probably felt like a long lecture up until this point. So this is a nice room full of people who are also thinking about these challenges, and you will probably learn more from your neighbor than you will learn from me. So I'm going to give you 5 minutes. If the person next to you came with them, you can't do that with you can't do this with them. You probably have talked about it. So find someone new, say hi. This is great practice for your neighbors. Say hi, tell them where you live, tell them one thing you've done that I've talked about here today and one thing you think you need to work on. And maybe you can help each other out. I'm going to give 5 minutes. Don't be shy. All right, y'all. See that was so fun. You don't want to stop, right? It was so fun. You would rather do that all day. All right, who had fun talking to someone new? Oh, come on, raise them higher. We had fun talking to someone new. Anyone learn anything interesting? Okay, a couple of hands. Yeah, okay. Turns out that our neighbors, our new friends from around the region can help us out. I appreciate you all doing that. Sometimes when you ask someone to talk to a stranger, they get that deer in the headlights look in their eyes. So I appreciate you all doing this with me. So you just talked to a few people or one person around you who's dealing with these challenges as well. It's probably why they're here today. I started this presentation off by saying, this is a community challenge, right? We're all dealing with it together. The more that we can work together, the better off we'll be. And that you don't have to, I went through a lot of things to think about today about your own plan, decisions that you have to make. And that can be really overwhelming, and I'm sorry for that. So I'm going to end today with saying that you don't have to do this alone, and that I want you to think about your own community, who can help you with this, and ask them for help. So I want everyone to pull out their phone and text or email someone in your network who after today you're going to talk to this about. It could be someone who's going to help you sign up for notifications. It could be someone who's going to help you. They're going to give you a place to go. They're going to help you pack your essentials. This is something that we can all work on together. I don't see a lot of phones out. I'm going to be a teacher here and say that my whole goal is that you don't end this conversation here today. I started by asking, who has left a disaster preparedness presentation and not done something? I do that because I lead these all the time, and I know it's easy to go home and be like, yeah, I need to do that. And we have so many things in our lives that draw on our attention. But if you can continue this conversation after we leave here today with a family member, a neighbor, a friend, at least you're moving a little bit forward. So I encourage you to do this. Talk to someone here. I'll count that as someone in your network to help you out today. And I want to thank you all for having me and take any questions that I can take in the next 5 minutes. Yeah. Thank you.
It's difficult to go from El Cerrito to Pinole on a Thursday afternoon when traffic's not moving on the 80.
Yeah.
How do you get somewhere when you can't move anymore?
Yeah, that is one of the reasons why we're really pushing this leave early concept, because we know that traffic is a challenge on a regular day, and the traffic is a challenge, along those massive highways that we use, those regular routes that we use. And so can you imagine all of East Bay needing to get somewhere? That's part of this kind of leave early campaign that we're really pushing, knowing the traffic that we have, and especially in the Berkeley context, knowing that the roadways that we have in the hills where our high fire danger is, they just don't have a ton of capacity to move a lot of people as quickly as we need to. And so that is a big part of why we're recommending, and we're really going down this leave early road, because it is super challenging to move that many people out of harm's way as quickly as we want to. There is some interesting, work that we can done working with regional transportation partners, right? Are there things that we can do with California highways to turn off exits to try to make things move as smoothly as possible? But again, you're right that there's just so many people going to be trying to move at once, and that's why we encourage you to leave early to try to get out ahead of that. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I know it's early days, but there was a fire on Thursday on Arlington, a 3-story house that are there any lessons learned that you can share from that? I know this the once an hour 7 bus couldn't run. There was a run that got canceled because no one could move on Arlington. Can you tell us more about that?
I'm going to punt that one to Fire Chief Sprague, who just is very luckily here. Thank you.
Hi, everybody. So there was a residential structure fire on the Arlington border of Berkeley and El Cerrito. Both departments responded and controlled the fire within about half an hour. Luckily everybody escaped the home, and it was not fire weather, right? We didn't have the winds. So, and we're not particularly concerned about a fire in that scenario spreading into a massive mega fire conflagration. There's just not enough vegetative runway for a fire to gain enough steam and enough energy to overwhelm an entire neighborhood. So could it spread to a couple more houses, even maybe potentially a block in really extreme fire weather? Yes, of course. But the fires we're really worried about are where an ignition has a run of vegetation to get going and then hit everything. Does that answer your question?
Well, because the topic here is evacuation, can you tell us what happened with fire, with vehicle traffic? And because Arlington is already in and out of the neighborhood.
Well, normally for structure fires that are in a residential or any neighborhood, we stop traffic because there's fire apparatus, there's firefighters in the roadway operating. So that's a very normal procedure for us. We're not initiating evacuation. If anything, we're clearing homes adjacent to that structure, but we're not calling for an evacuation when there's a single residential structure fire.
Can you coordinate with Berkeley PD to help them direct traffic?
Yeah, they respond.
Around and send them down side streets?
They respond to every one of our structure fires.
That fire was in an old wooden house, right? Is that common? Have there been other, how did that fire start? Have there been other?
The fire's still under investigation, but it does appear it was an exterior fire that started on a deck and made its way inside, which is a pretty common phenomenon. Yes, we do have structure fires that happen throughout the year. In Berkeley, there was between 40 and 60 structure fires per year.
So, returning to the topic,
Yeah, I'll just give Chief Sprague all the hard questions, don't worry.
returning
Yeah.
to the topic of evacuation,
Yeah.
if we were to have evacuated, voluntarily on every red flag day,
Yeah.
how often would we have done that last year?
Last year, yes, it's true that there are a lot of red flag, it depends on the year, there are a lot of red flag warnings. I actually don't know off the top of my hand how many red flag warnings there were last year. Do you remember?
Yeah, I believe in this specific region, in this area, Berkeley, El Cerrito, it was 2.
Yeah, I think in 2020, though, which was a very high wildfire year, there were over 20, I think maybe 25 or so. So it kind of depends on the year how many red flag warnings there are, which is why one approach in Berkeley that we recommend people leave during what we call extreme fire weather, which is kind of around that, what I talked about, particularly dangerous situation where it's a little bit more extreme than a red flag warning, where we're seeing conditions that are headed into that kind of purple category, and that's when we recommend people leave. And last year we had 1 of that, and the year before that I think we had 0. So like I said at the beginning, these are fairly rare weather events when we're talking about those really extreme conditions where, as he said, we're worried about mega fires starting. So that is why we think it is possible for maybe people to leave their homes, one or 2 times a year. It's not as big of an ask as, a red flag warning might be, depending on the year. I think I'm almost at my time, but I'll take these last 2.
Hi, El Cerrito has a pilot program to restrict parking on street on narrow winding roads
Yeah.
during red flag days. Berkeley has even more narrow winding streets. Are you doing anything to restrict parking?
Yeah, so one thing that the city just finished was a 2-year evacuation time study. It's been written about in Berkeley side. If you want to dive in, there's some really great story maps. Part of the thing it looked at, would parking restrictions help support faster evacuations, particularly in our hilly, windy roads across Berkeley. And what the study found was that, in fact, reducing parking on those streets would not dramatically reduce evacuation time for residents, because ultimately you're going to reach a chokehold, which will be the intersections where you're going to get stuck with a bunch of cars also trying to exit. So you can go really fast down the windy road on 2 sides or with the parking not there, but you're always going to hit a stopping point where everyone hits the intersection. So there were not a lot of gains there. However, they did find that there are some opportunities to reduce or restrict parking that would allow for responder ingress, so that Berkeley is currently exploring what that might look like in order to prioritize responder ingress and reduce parking and the staffing involved in all of that. So we are looking into that, but less for restricting it across the board and really thinking about how responders could get in. And then, I saw the last hand in the back.
Hey, I was wondering, do you have services for people who don't drive at all, like households who can't drive at all?
Unfortunately, this is why we're really pushing for people to make their own plans, think about things with their neighbors, thinking about plans with their network, and to leave early so that they have more options available to them. Because the challenge is, in taking the city of Berkeley, we have 120,000 people. If you're looking at all of the people who might need help one way or another, the number is just so high that it's beyond, something that we can immediately solve. But it's a challenge that we are excited to think about at a community lens. How can we all work together to support people getting out, and how can we help people leave early so that they, could use some help from other
Okay,
people?
And just like one
Yeah.
follow-up question related
Yeah.
to that. How far should somebody be expected to travel when there's a fire? Is there going to be like is it going to be like a goal or like a map showing us where we're supposed to go?
Yeah, great question. So when we're encouraging people, especially people to leave early, at least in the context of Berkeley, we're really focused on folks who live in the hills because their evacuation challenges are just so much more challenging, or there's many more evacuation challenges due to the windy, narrow roads closer to where fire enters. So a lot of the times we're recommending those folks, find an area, in the flats or areas where they have much more available roadway networks. If you want to be, really safe, trying to find an area that is not under a red flag warning or, under extreme weather conditions. It can be hard. We share a lot of weather with the East Bay, but, San Francisco might be a good option. It kind of depends on what level of comfort you have and your, like those risk factors I went through, trying to find a place where, is not dealing with the same weather phenomenon that's relatively nearby. And then also just thinking about your own network, like what options are realistic, what options do you have available to you?
So is there like a website that I can look up that says the zone where I'm supposed to go when there's like an alert?
So in the event of a fire, or these kinds of especially in the event of a fire, like the notifications will say, like, you should head in this direction based on the information about the current fire. It's hard to tell, depending on the fire situation, you might go to one place versus another. And so that's why it's really important to be signed up for notifications so we can tell you, okay, generally this direction or generally this location. In Berkeley, we, if we send an alert, we would say, hey, we're opening up this community center at this location where we could gather. And that's a good starting point once we know kind of where the fire's at, where it's going. Sometimes in a large scale fire, like meetup points might be outside of Berkeley or they might be outside of your local jurisdiction, just depending on the fire context. So really recommend wherever your local jurisdiction is to sign up for alerts and make sure you're getting those messages. Yeah, thank you for the great questions. I think that's the end of my time. Thank you so much for having me and appreciate you being here.